So talking about how this kind of ties into the achievement gap, so there are many different factors, and we'll explain those later, but one of the factors is teaching and kind of your background also. And sometimes in different parts where you're from, teachers sometimes teach to the stereotypes, especially if you are, for example, I'm from Chicago, and I'm from the suburbs, but if you go into like inner city, sometimes if you don't have like the best teachers, they'll be like, oh, because these schools don't have the best reputation, maybe I won't push them to their full potential. And they teach to the stereotypes instead of pushing any kid, no matter what, to their full potential. They lessen their curriculum because they're like, oh, this is what they can handle. This is what, just simple things like that. So that's kind of how this tied in, because a lot of people judge people just what they look like. And yeah, and that's one of the factors that we'll talk about.
Okay. So when we talk about the achievement gap, this is our definition. It's a gap in academic achievement measured by test scores, graduation rate, dropout rates, and college completion rates. And it's measured between students of different races, but also different socioeconomic factors.
And if you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to raise your hand. The cost of the gap, so you guys can see that high school grads are twice as likely to vote. These are just kind of some statistics. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. People who don't have the best education tend to have a less adequate life, or they have a lot of more issues. Not issues, but you guys can read for yourself.
I mean, basically, a lack of education leads to worse health, more likely to be incarcerated, lower happiness, lower job quality, all those factors.
Okay, so your 4 factors are the individual, which is obviously you as the student, your home and family background. So like if you come from a good home, good family, not a lot of people in your family get in trouble, that'll play into it. Your teachers, like Emma said, if your teachers teach to stereotypes, that obviously has a negative connotation when it comes to high school youth education. And your school systems, which again, it all depends on where you're at, whether there are stereotypes or whether the school system has a reputation of being good or bad or whatever.
Also giving a little more background on each one. So also at home life, that also deals with if you're not English speakers and you're going to like a school in the United States, it's hard for if your parents don't speak English, it's hard for them to kind of teach you or help you improve on your English. So the resources at home affect the student, especially if your parents read to you every day compared to a student who their parents don't have the resources like books and they haven't been read to. So that's kind of like at the home life. And the individual is kind of attitude, how you affect your own education. If your outlook is I'm gonna push myself to the fullest, then you'll push yourself. But that's how you affect your own.
So, like picking off what Emma said, for the individuals, there are stereotypes, attitude, and goal setting. Students who set goals are more likely to have a positive attitude on school and also put forth a better effort than a student who does not have goals. So for example, if a student has a goal that he wants to go to college, he will obviously put more effort into school, get those better grades to try and get into college. Stereotypes and attitudes are sort of self.
Okay, so the home and family background, you have health, environmental, parental involvement and attitude, knowledge in the home, neighborhood stability. Just want to touch on a few of those. First of all, parent involvement and attitude. Like Emma said earlier, if your parents are there and they're present in your education, they read to you every day, they help you with your homework, things of that nature, you're probably going to be more likely to not only succeed, but actually want to succeed, because you're like, okay, my parents are helping me. They're helping me through this process. I don't have to do it by myself. And then if you're in a home where your parents aren't ever around and there's nobody really there, it might cause you to kind of say, well, I'll be okay. I don't really need it. And then like neighborhood stability, that's a big one. Like I know if you live in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of crime, say it's a good quiet neighborhood, and everybody's all really friendly, you might have a better experience with your neighbors. You might say, hey, nice to meet you. But if you're in a neighborhood where you're scared to walk out your door, that'll not only affect the way you live, but it also affects your education, because you might have that same attitude at school. You might not be willing to learn or willing to meet people because of that fear.
Along with neighborhood stability, that also has to do with students who move a lot. If you don't have a constant home, and especially if students who move a lot during high school, if they don't ever really set up a home base, they don't ever get set in a school district. I mean, schools have different curriculums, they have different friends, they have different support systems. So by moving a lot, you never really build a solid foundation. And with health and environment, that has to do with, like Kenny said, how safe your neighborhood is, but also students who are malnourished or in poverty, who come to school hungry, tend to do worse at school because they can't really focus, because they always have those hunger pains in home.
Your teachers obviously affect your education. Kind of the effectiveness of your teachers. So a lot of people want to be teachers growing up, but some of them don't all, especially if they're older teachers, they might not be up to date on the best ways of teaching styles. So the effectiveness definitely affects you, because then you don't get the best education that goes along with their experience and their expectations. Like we talked about, how if they teach the stereotypes, they don't expect a lot from you, then it's hard for you to expect a lot from yourself. And if they also are, and also they have to be like culturally aware of circumstances. Like they should teach, if they know your family, if you like teach younger kids and they know your family doesn't maybe not speak English at home, then teachers should take it upon themselves to give them stuff to do at home, but then also like explain it if they need any help, kind of the cultural awareness of their at-home background, so they can provide special things for kids.
Some school factors. Schools that have a rigorous curriculum generally produce better students because they challenge those students to a higher standard. Resources. Schools that have resources such as the smart boards is an example. I know in my hometown there's an example. My school just started a grant with Apple to start providing MacBooks to some of the students. And someone wrote to the Star Tribune, which is a Minneapolis magazine, that there's a school in Minneapolis that couldn't afford heating, AC during the summer, but my school could afford a grant for laptops. So there's that kind of difference. Resources is a big factor. School climate, if students feel safe there, if they feel positively about the school, if they know they're getting a good education, or if they feel like they're getting gypped from attending a better school. And extracurriculars, schools that offer better extracurriculars tend to retain students better, and also provide those students with those goals and positive school climate. So that's that's supposed to be the discrepancy between high achieving and low achieving students. High achieving students expect themselves to do better. So this is like drawn back to where in elementary school, especially with academic tracking, where you take tests to determine what classes you're going to take, and those teachers teach to that level. So if you do poorly on that test and get put in a poor class, but you are in fact very intelligent, and that teacher expects you to do like math at a lower skill level, you will slowly sink down to that skill level, and since you're expected to do less, you will do worse.
Especially like in high school, if you when you take classes, there's the general, advanced, honors, and AP classes. And I know in my school, if you start off in an advanced class or you start off in a general class, you stay in that every year. And if you do try to push, like I've been on all honors, and then so I can take AP classes, but I have had friends that have been in advanced classes and maybe want to take like an AP class, and they have to go through a lot of paperwork and have to talk to their counselor and have to talk with their teacher, and that kind of just shows like because they're set in this category that they are kind of just medium, they're not extremely smart, that they shouldn't be able to push themselves. People have to make sure that it's okay, like they're okay to be challenged. When we should challenge everybody equally, and of course people are going to have different skill levels, but that's one thing that is really prevalent in schools is the tracking system. We're going to take a little time. I actually did a service project on the Achievement Gap, so if that's okay, I kind of wanted to share that a little bit. And I know other people went to NYLT, and we can kind of talk about their service projects, if anybody wants to share any of theirs too. So my was based about the achievement gap, and I did some research, and there's this I think it's an elementary school and a middle school in a town close to my house, and most people think my neighborhood is kind of a privileged neighborhood, but we have a town called Carpentersville, and their school is so underperforming that people can choose to go to a different school. Some people get bused over a half hour away to go to another school. And so we decided, like, that's a problem. Like, a lot of kids, the kids that are still in those schools, don't get the same education as we do. So we started making a summer camp. And so we went to we had to go to the board of our school and kind of talk about how we would go about this. And what we do is we have a 3-week summer camp, and we teach reading and math. And this is all student ran, so kids from my high school come, a lot of kids who are just kind of like, some kids who need like service hours, but other kids who just want to help kids out. And we have teachers from elementary schools. We email all the elementary schools, and not even only our district, but kind of in a big area around our community. And we ask if they have any recommendations for kids who are underperforming. So they're not at the reading level or math level that they should be going into the next grade. So after these teachers kind of nominate these students, it's a free camp, so we sign them up and we try to find busing for them to come because a lot of the parents can't drive them. So this camp takes place in the summer, and it's Monday through Thursday, and we do have we usually have to be there at 7, but I think it's from 8 to about 1. So it's kind of like a long day, and we incorporate gym because when kids are active, it helps them learn more. So we incorporate gym, and then we also incorporate a healthy lifestyle, healthy eating habits. So we also have snack time and lunch, and we give them like healthy food. So we have these kids, we teach them reading and math, and we split them up into smaller classrooms. And there's 3 youth per classroom. So 3 like teenage kids. And we do a lot of interactive activities. It's kind of outside the normal school environment. We do a lot of, we have smart boards. We do a lot of smart board activities, a lot of hands-on. And we kind of try to teach to every type of learner. And we've found that the parents were so happy by the end of this camp because it really impacted these kids. These kids definitely had an improvement from when they started until when they finished. And they were excited about school. We had parents that were like, my daughter was so excited to read, and she's never had that. And that's one thing that I love about service learning is because no matter what project you do, it affects both the person you are helping and yourself. So like I felt amazing because I could help these kids learn a simple math problem that they've been struggling for a year to do. But also these kids were like, oh, I finally got it, and these people were so nice, and they were excited as well. So when you do any type of service learning, it changes you and the person. And this camp was just so successful, so we have it every year. And we try to expand the amount of kids we can take in. But the thing about projects is you find what works and what doesn't work. So 2 years ago, we tried to do it what I'm trying to say. We didn't do the teacher recommendations. So all the parents could just bring their kids if they felt like they needed help. But we found that it was more of a babysitting kind of service because they're like, oh, we can get away from our kids. It's a 3-week camp, and you guys are feeding them and whatnot. And we realized that some of the teachers' kids in our own district were bringing their kids here. And we're like, these kids know what they're doing. And then there was kids in the class that had no idea what these math problems were. And you could see the achievement gap right in the classroom. Like these teachers' kids knew exactly what they were doing. And they're like, this is so easy. And then these other kids did not. So we improved that by asking for the teacher recommendations. So if you ever fail or like you need to tweak something about your service learning project, that's okay because it happens to everybody. So we made improvements and it goes pretty successful now. So yeah, we have it every year. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to answer if they But we pay for this by we write grants. Our school, and it's all youth ran, so all the teenagers write grants to ask for money, and that's how we pay for the food to feed them. And our local middle school supplies the space. We use our middle school for the teaching facility. But that was my little project on this achievement gap that I do in my own community.